The last property we're going to talk about goes to the other half of the distributive property. It's just going to go right underneath it, and it is the inverse property of addition. The inverse property of addition says that when you add opposite numbers, the answer is always 0. When you add opposite numbers, the answer is always 0. And what I mean by opposite numbers is opposite numbers, one of them is positive and one of them is negative. So, for example, you could have 5 plus negative 5, and those two are opposites, so they equal 0. You could have negative 7 plus positive 7, and that's equal to 0. You could have negative 12 plus 12, and that is equal to 0. We could also write this using variables. We could say a plus negative a equals 0, or z plus negative z equals 0. That is the inverse property of addition. It says that when we add opposite numbers, our answer is always 0. I think the inverse and identity properties sometimes get a little bit mixed up. The identity property, if you come back, remember the identity of a number doesn't change. So when we multiply by 1, the number stays the same. And when we add 0, the number stays the same. And the only reason they get mixed up is because they both sound similar, start with an I, the identity property and the inverse property. The inverse property, inverse means opposites. So when you see inverse, you should automatically say, oh, I'm looking for opposites. And when I see opposites, 5 and negative 5, I know that's the inverse property. And I know that opposites equal 0. So that is the inverse property of addition. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping those two clear and separate as we move forward.